Hello, welcome to my review and analysis of the Hasegawa X-29 1/72nd scale kit. I just got done building this and I'm very happy with how it turned out. One of the things that I've dug up here was my book that I had from 1988 when I was very young. And what we got here on the last page is a picture of the X-29A. It says, could be the fighter jet of the future. It was built to test new designs for a smaller, less expensive combat aircraft. Engineers designed the forward swept wings for a smoother ride and better control in turning. The pilot can use a computer to change the positions of different parts on the outside of the airplane at a rate of 40 times per second. So this plane was extremely cutting edge at the time. The pilot doesn't actually control the computer to change it. The computer does that on itself. So, but interesting nonetheless to take a look at this now. But this is what I had when I was young, and it's the memory that I remembered when I saw this at my hobby shop. Thought I would share that piece of information. On the side of the box, you have a color representation of the finished model here. So it's nice to see. Other than that, not a whole lot to look at. Looking at the directions here, we have a black and white representation of the airplane. You also have some information about it in different languages. They have some diagrams of some other airplanes here, aircraft in the action series, as well as a diorama kit that it suggests that you can get to make this, have some additional things to it. So looking at the directions here, you go into building the cockpit setup. Pretty simple here. You just pretty much put the control panel in, the flight stick, you have some decals. This calls for a neutral gray color, and what I did was I black based it and then I dry brushed the gray color on top of it. Thought it turned out pretty good. One thing that I did that's different from any other kit that I've really done up until this point is I did not put the control stick in, and I did not put the seat in either, which is something that you typically do on an airplane so that you can put the canopy on top once you're done and use it as a mask to paint. Well, I decided that I wanted to have the cockpit glass be in the open position, so I did not put those things in, at first. What I decided to do was I decided to put the cockpit in without that stuff on the inside and just use white glue to glue it in place to act as a mask, but then take it off later on to install it in this position and then put the other stuff in there afterwards. So that's something that I did that is worth noting. So once I finished that, you get to marrying the fuselage halves together. I did put some lead weight in the nose to make sure it doesn't sit on the tail. Not sure if that was necessary or not, but it's something that I did with super glue. It also says for you to do some of this painting stuff, but I didn't do any of it. I just pretty much assembled the airplane. So steps 2 and 3, pretty much just assembled it like normal, no painting or anything, just getting it ready to paint. One of the things about this airplane is it's pretty much painted all white. So I was able to get away with installing the front landing gear, the structures for the back wheels. I left the wheels and the wheel doors off though until the very end. But everything else I pretty much put into place, because normally you do like an interior green color here and then you mask it off and then you put all of this stuff on afterwards. That wasn't really necessary since everything was pretty much one color. So that's what I did there. As far as the fit and everything fit together really well. I have no complaints about it. On the bottom, I did notice that it wasn't perfectly even. There was a little bit of a ridge in between the halves, so I did have to sand that. Once I put the primer on and everything, I noticed that there was a little bit of a seam showing, so I had to go back a little bit, but Everything fit together really well. The stabilizers can actually move if you want them to, but I found that when I put them into place, one of them was loose and they both really didn't fit that great. There was a little bit of a gap. So I just shaved off part of the nub here and I just glued it into place after making sure it was level. I glued in the nose part and also the engine back here I put on there. I thought about maybe leaving this off, but I decided just to put everything together as one piece, and then I would paint this and then mask it off later. As far as, you know, the painting and everything, so it doesn't really have a particular like brand of paint that it calls out, so you have to figure out which ones are which, but these are all standard colors, so it's not too hard to go online and figure out which, you know, company brand you prefer, and a lot of these you probably have anyways. So worth mentioning also, the ladder here, it calls for a khaki and a khaki green color, but in the documentaries I was watching about the airplane, they were always like a yellow color, so I did yellow with some gray handles at the top. And now you get to the painting and decaling of the plane. I did everything black, and I black based it, and then I took white, and then I did a pre-shading technique using the white on there. The white color that it calls for after that is FS17875, which is basically insignia white. And you can buy spray cans, like Tammy has AS20, which is the color. But since I did all of the pre-shading and I wanted better control over everything, I opted to make my own mix going online and looking at a color chart. I came up with the color by basically mixing 10 parts white and 1 part deck tan. And that's how I came up with the color to do all of this. And I was pretty happy with the result. It came out pretty close to what I feel the photographs were showing. As far as the decals are concerned, this is probably the most challenging of the build in my opinion, because a lot of these decals are very long. The decals are thin, which is great, but they are easy to rip if you're not careful. So I suggest on some of these longer ones cutting them up into sections, really paying attention where they should go on the airplane, because some of these have to line up extremely well. For example, on the bottom there's a stripe here, and this looks like one piece. It's actually 3 separate pieces. So you have this piece which overlaps and connects to the top, goes all the way here, it stops here, then you have a little, like a smaller middle piece that you have to connect to that, and then you have another piece that goes here, wraps around, and then connects in the middle. So you can imagine all 3 pieces have to be lined up pretty well for this to connect and this to connect. And also the middle piece is going over some structures, and it's, you know, it's a little bit of a challenge. You definitely have to be patient. You have to have a lot of micro set available to make micro adjustments, the correct tools to do this. I sealed all of the decals in with Mark Fit Strong. That worked pretty well. No complaints about that. And once I was finished with the decals, I added on some of these smaller details, like the clear red on here. There's a silver lining on the intakes. I did all that, and then I used a black Tamiya panel liner to do the weathering. I wanted to go for an effect that the plane had definitely been in use, but since there were only 2 of these, I figured that they probably took pretty decent care of them, so I didn't want to go too overboard on the weathering. So pretty much just did the black panel line, and I noticed in some pictures online when I looked up the wheel wells, there was primer, like the green-yellow primer showing through. So I opted to add some of that also to show some of the weathering. And then once that was set, it was good to go. So let's take a look at the final model. So here we have the finished model. As you can see, the distinctive stripes on there from an X-29 on the tail. You can see the weathering that I did on the actual airplane. The open canopy. I scratch built the seat belts. using Tamiya tape as well as aluminum foil over the top. And for the scale, I'm satisfied with how it turned out. There's the yellow ladder, clear red light there, and here's where I added some of the weathering to the wheel wells using the yellow-green color. But overall, I'm very happy with how it turned out. This is a very unique subject, and I'm very happy to kind of do it. As I mentioned, I remember it from my book there, so it's definitely something when I saw it I wanted to add to my collection, and I had a lot of fun building it. If you checked out any of my videos, I definitely appreciate you watching those, and I'm looking forward to doing some more builds in the future very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.